So welcome back to the 2020 Victoria Tea Festival Revival. If you're just joining us, we've been streaming on Twitch. We've been streaming on YouTube Live. We have people viewing from all over the world. It looks like pretty exciting. We are just finishing up. We just finished actually a talk with Tisanes over in Vancouver. We had Daniel. We had George from Obubu Tea over in Wazuka, Japan, tuning in live from Japan. We've had Unity Jun on, and we're about to have John Patterson on. He's with Requiem Naturals. He owns Requiem. He's in Victoria, BC here. I'm joined by my co-host, Ryan Moen. You guys all there?
Yep.
Yeah? Okay, awesome. So I'll just load this up. There we go. Okay, awesome. So John, welcome to the show, man, and welcome back, I should say, because you...
Welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You've been, this is, I guess, your third year at the Victoria Tea Festival Revival, right? This is just the first time it's been virtual. So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So a huge appreciation for that. And you were also extremely... a huge part of gathering vendors for the 2020 live festival that never happened. But you sure put in a lot of work, and you know, just judging from the responses from last year and this year, I bet you, in terms of bodies at the festival, human beings enjoying tea, it was going to be a big one, and it was quite.
Yeah, I think so.
It was a little crushing, I'll be honest, to not be able to move forward with it and having to cancel 2 days beforehand. But I'm so grateful that we have this amazing 24-hour online version of the festival happening now after that profound setback. And but appreciate all the work. A lot of the work that you did back then has actually translated into some amazing folks here because they knew about the festival and they know about you, that you reached out to them and provided them with a lot of good information, and then to reach out to them again this time was made that much easier. So thank you for that.
Yeah, of course. I mean, the festival is a fantastic opportunity to connect with people who really care about tea in Victoria. So that's lovely.
Yeah, and we have visitors from all over too, right? So it's now even more all over. So
yeah, we spanned out to Finland thanks to you. You brought us 24 speakers pretty much, and we'll bring you all your fans.
That's right.
Awesome.
You want to tell the viewers a little bit about what you're up to at Requiem Naturals?
I will. Just really quickly, are you guys getting feedback, or is that just me?
I'm not getting feedback on my end. Are you guys getting feedback on your end?
No, I'm pretty clear on my end.
Okay, give me 1 second. I'm just going to unplug my headphones.
Okay.
See if that fixes it.
Yeah, you might be getting sort of. Oh, I can hear myself now.
See if that fixes it.
So you might be listening to. Are you watching the show itself? Maybe you need to turn on the live version of the show.
That's why.
There you go. So it was that little bit of delay that was happening there through watching.
Oh my God, that's so much better.
Yeah. Awesome. You're probably having a 4-second echo that was driving you crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I was like, oh well, you know, this will be fine for the entire rest of the show. Not maddening at all. Cool.
Yeah, you know, there's a 4-second delay. Reality is actually 4 seconds. We're actually 4 seconds ahead of reality. So time exists in this moment 4 seconds before it does for the rest of humanity.
That's some pretty meta stuff.
Yeah, right. So yeah, let's hear about Requiem Naturals.
Yeah, sure. So basically, the idea behind the company or the project or whatever you want to call it was myself and my father were into herbal naturals, especially those in the West Coast region, specifically pertaining to stuff that was endemic. So what I mean by that is herbs that come from here and always have been here. Not stuff that's introduced. So there's no lavender, there's no peppermint from the Middle East, there's no chamomile. All there is wild species of chamomile that grows here. But it was kind of coming from a tea blending background. It was an option for me challenge rather, for me to be able to take a look at the whole spectrum of stuff that was out there. Look at medicinal aspects of teas, so stuff that had positive aspects, but not in a crazy kind of way. Like I didn't want anybody having like a serious reaction to anything. So there's that side of things. And then on the other side of it was taking the tea blending aspect. So I wanted to take only stuff from this area, primarily the West Coast region. So anything from like kind of like up north down to Oregon area, primarily within BC's boundaries if possible. There's a little bit of stuff from sort of Saskatchewan, but that stuff does actually grow here. Just it's easier to get it from there. So I took those criteria and then I made it slightly harder and decided to start blending for the individual zodiac signs and for the individual elements. So it was more just a crazy idea. I wanted to see whether I could do it. The reactions that I've had from people so far, sort of across the world, those people who I've sent teas to, it's been pretty good. It was not easy to kind of play around with all that. And then the other side of things is that when you're taking those teas and you're changing the particle size, I ended up with a lot of potential waste. And so I realized that, okay, well, I can either throw this in the garbage or the compost or something, or I can try and use this for something else. So that would-be waste is actually what I use in pretty much all of my my herbal body products. So I have 2 different kinds of deodorant. I have a skin salve that's sort of like good for like on top of your skin. So anything like burns, cuts, rashes, anything like that. It's actually something that helps with eczema. Right. So there's that side of things. But just taking those herbs and being able to play around with them and have that freedom is fantastic. At some point, I might do soaps or something, but there's that. And then there's also the coffee side of things. I work day to day in the coffee industry, and I have for years. I love coffee as much as I love tea. So that's the majority of my sort of focus right now, actually, is I'm transferring from one season of coffees into another season.
Right.
So every couple of months, I try to rotate into a new set of coffees, a new style, a new grouping of blends. And again, that's sort of working in the blending world.
And this whole, I mean, your talk today, we were gonna talk a little bit about enzymatic oxidation, and I guess that would play into a little bit of. Did that come about also as a result of the waste products, or is that like a project that you just really wanted to do? Or you purposely harvested for this, or a combination of the two?
I was harvesting fireweed with the intent of using firewood leaf. So I've actually got some right here. So this is dried, what I would call green fire leaf, or basically unoxidized leaf. Can see it kind of right there. Yes. So the fireweed plant is basically a weed. It grows in ditches in the northern hemisphere. So people in Finland, you have it there. People in Russia, Siberia, all across the northern hemisphere. So it just grows in ditches. And I was planning on harvesting it and using it in teas.
Right.
And I found that, looking at it, I took some and some got bruised. And I had not that long ago been to India and Sri Lanka, looking at tea and how that's processed in a massive industrial sort of way, right. And then also in smaller ways. And they all did different styles of processing. And I'm looking at this plant, and I decided to start doing a little bit of research into the chemical compounds that are in fireweed, or like the actual makeup of the leaf itself. Right. And it contains tannins. So I looked at it and I'm like, I wonder. And of course, when you do some research, there's people who have been doing this forever, primarily in Russia and Finland. I forget exactly what the name of the tea is in the region, and I'm sure it changes based on the language. But yeah, essentially there's like a form of sort of like, almost like a trapper tea. And they've been drinking it forever as like a replacement for black tea, or I've been able to get yellow sort of style oxidation out of it. And we talked about this the last time we did Jagavision.
Right.
And then sort of like a oolong. It's more of like a low oxidation oolong, and it's kind of more similar to like I would say a Taiwanese tea, but of course it all sort of depends on what you're looking at. But the samples that I have there with you right now are the completely unoxidized and the completely fully oxidized.
Which is a good way to check it out, hey?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the fully oxidized tea is done like a CTC style. So I just found to be able to make that cut, it was easier for me to actually just cut it super fine, and it oxidizes like nobody's business. Like maybe a day, and it's gone from green to black. It's pretty crazy.
Interesting. Which is, I mean, Camellia sinensis works that way, right? Like, I mean, obviously there's going to be different techniques that produce different results and different time frames, etc. So, you know, it'd be interesting. What would be the difference between a fully oxidized kind of green equivalent versus a you know, like if you, sorry, this oxidized leaf, if you'd let it go a little bit longer or not, like if you'd oxidized it over a longer time frame or not. But you know, like it's going to be but it's so interesting. Just even like a day, like can you talk a little bit about what the enzymatic what is enzymatic oxidation and how
Sure.
And Ryan, feel free to like jump in on questions that you may have as well, of course.
Yeah, the questions are going to come, but I'm already so curious because it is a pioneer species. So anytime land is cleared here on the West Coast, fireweed is one of the first things to come up.
Yeah, exactly.
And I just never looked at it this way. So as I hear it, it's developing a new relationship with it.
Yeah,
awesome. Cool.
It exists. It's called fireweed, from what I've gathered, basically because whenever a fire occurs, like when we have forest fires, it exactly as you said, it's the first thing to pop up. So during the summer months, I'm basically, as I'm driving up and down the island, which I was frequently doing, I would just watch the corner of the roads, and that's not the stuff that I'm picking, to be clear, but it is a really good indicator as to when my spots, which are all over the place, are going to be good to go.
Right.
And it's funny because I've seen difference in terms of terroir in whether it's a high grown or whether it's like a high, like a well irrigated, not irrigated, but like well watered fireweed plant, or whether it's like up on Mount Washington and super, super, super dry, and it's just getting sun baked for like 3 months.
Right.
The flavor is different. The way that it reacts is different. The way that the plant actually grows is different. You get some that are just stalks with leaves coming off of them, and some that are actually flat, and they have these weird it looks like a genetic mutation, perhaps.
Oh, crazy!
But it's all the same plant.
But all these different variations of. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
How do you I know we talked about this a little bit when I had you on Jagavision, but can you explain to our viewers a little bit how you interact with the fact that you're working with an indigenous plant? There's all this. I mean, there's a good reason for us to be like careful about cultural appropriation, etc., and being careful with First Nations, etc. You and your father do a lot of work in navigating that political realm too, that I find absolutely inspiring. Could you talk on that just for a quick moment?
Yeah, it's still a tough area of conversation. My dad works with the First Nations groups that are primarily on the peninsula in Victoria area on Vancouver Island. So that's where I grew up. I grew up surrounded by 3 reservations. I went to school with primarily a split of Indigenous kids and the rest of the folks at school. And so I grew up around Native culture to some degree, and I've had a huge amount of respect for it. He's an old British ex-military, ex-special forces guy, and he unfortunately ended up disabled. And one of the things that he sort of set his attention on for whatever reason was herbal medicine. He ended up working with some of the local guys and had some previous experience working with some of the Indigenous in, I think it's Alberta, Calgary. And basically, he started learning from them, and we wanted to be able to take some of this knowledge and by no means claim that this is something that we've created or something that's from us. This is like the entire idea behind Requiem is to give praise and give sort of acknowledgement to the fact that this is something that comes from this land and this comes from these peoples. So we have a specific amount of knowledge that we've been able to gather from working in this area, and we want to show respect with it and also acknowledge the style of medicine that comes from this. This is kind of comparable to how the locals in India or Sri Lanka treat Vedic medicine or Ayurvedic medicine. So it's just acknowledging that, cinnamon, for instance, would have a specific property that maybe they acknowledge, or specific style of medicinal use that they acknowledge, but perhaps contemporary medicine maybe hasn't explored as much. And so all we're trying to do is acknowledge the fact that there's medicine all around us. There's potential for tea and for sort of pleasurable beverages all over the place.
Right.
And so we want to be able to take that. We want to show respect to the land, show respect to the people who first came here, and basically just do the best that we can to represent that and represent them however we can.
Well, that's awesome. Okay. So when you're, I guess, I mean, that's a really important conversation to talk through. And it's really, yeah, it is really interesting and amazing. Also, the level of involvement your father's had both learning from and sharing different pieces that he's learned with the communities that he's involved in. And that was also an inspiring piece for sure, for me anyways, when I was hearing it from you. If we were to sort of pivot this conversation a little bit back to what we were originally hoping to discuss a bit, unless Ryan, did you want to speak on what John was saying there first before I move on, or?
I think that John's most important thing he said was that it's a difficult conversation, and that it's a continuing conversation, recognizing that there's nothing simple about it, and that the newness of what you're going to be talking about with the oxidation and everything is only the frame, right, of a frame of view, and that the knowledge has been held since time memorial. And I think that's so important, but it's just also beautiful that you're coming from that, and it's coming from such a good place with your family as well. Like your dad's coming from such a happy place. So I just want to, recognize that you're not like, oh, we have answers. You're like, we're beginning conversations. That's so good.
Yeah. Our hope and where we're at right now basically is we're trying to work with each group, because they don't talk to each other. People seem to have the idea that there's communication between groups. Sometimes there is, but depending on what it is and depending on the nature of it, when it comes to herbal medicine, those are like closely guarded secrets in a lot of cases. We have the benefit of being able to talk to each group and compile information of our own sort of research creation and share that, so as information isn't lost in those processes between groups. And I don't want to be the person who's sort of saying that, this is the correct use of this medicine. No. You have the option to be able to use it however you want, right? But we have found that through talking with many different people, through open conversation with many different people, that we've compiled this information, and we find that this particular herb is useful for these different things. It's used historically for these different things. And those conversations are without a mediator, which in some cases I find my father being in a lot of cases. Without that, I think that there's the potential for loss. And I hope that that's not the case. I hope that we can create some sort of opportunity for people to be able to learn from each other, even if that communication isn't direct.
That's interesting. So it's kind of like a journal. You get to be the journal that everybody writes in and communicates with each other, sort of. At least in these particular areas that you're working in. That's interesting. And also that it's like Ryan was saying, the beginning of a conversation, not that you have all the answers. I wanted to. So if we were to talk about what you're doing, that's so interesting. Like I find this. I could talk about this all day. Like I just find it so fascinating. This idea, and I mean when I talk to people who are really into chocolate, or when I talk to people who are really into wine, or when I talk to people who are really into different fermentations, I often see so many parallels between tea production and these different industries. But you're purposefully and intentfully taking this concept of using enzymatic oxidation to develop sugar and tannin to create a different flavor at the end of the day. So we have this. I guess for those watching, it would be useful for them to know about. In tea, there's an enzyme called propyl oxidase, or PPO enzyme, and a lot of time is spent on figuring out when the right moment is to start releasing that enzyme, how long you want it to develop, how much you're going to bruise the leaves in the meantime, how much you're going to oxidize, and when you're going to freeze that enzyme from doing more work. It's what's responsible for browning the leaves of the Camellia sinensis plant so that it can create a green tea is going to be like freezing that process before it's done really anything. You have to kill the enzyme within 23 hours of harvest. Whereas if you want to have an oolong, you have this wide range of flavor possibilities by letting moisture loss of up to 20%, up to 80%, as little as 20%, and you have this big realm before you kill that PPO enzyme and freeze the process somewhat. And you're going to be oxidizing in between. There's yellow teas where you put a blanket over top of them during the oxidation process, and then you're gonna do the process. It's called kill green when you kill that PPO enzyme. And then crimson teas, or what we call black teas in North America, it's like 80 to 100% moisture loss via this withering process. So you've taken this idea of allowing an enzyme to oxidize the fireweed leaves. Have we been able to find what that enzyme is? Like, do we know it doesn't have a name? It's just there is a browning effect that happens when you harvest and start crushing.
Until I get to the point where, and this is often the case, I've worked with many different industries where I've played around with things, and that my personality, as you well know, is I take something and I go, how can I screw with it, right?
Okay.
Like, what can I do with this? And with tea, I basically just looked at it and I went, okay, well, if I can oxidize this style of leaf, can I do the same thing to this? What is the reaction?
Right.
I guinea pig myself whenever I'm doing anything like that multiple times to make sure that it's safe and all that. But we can't do testing at this level. Testing is massively expensive. Even just to get testing for caffeine levels in something is hugely restrictively expensive. So it's one of those things that if I had a lab and trained staff where I could just, take a plant and play around with it in different ways, I could probably come up with an answer for a lot of different questions, or, play around with a lot of different ideas very quickly. Right. But right now I'm sort of limited to me and my dad getting our van, going up to gather our fireweed. We load up the back of it and we do a whole load, right? We do basically fill up the entire back of the van. And whatever we get out of that load, we will process into multiple different styles as to whatever we need, whether it be, what we call green, what we're calling a, oolong. Yellow tea is usually the sort of the finer tips. That's the green right there, or the unoxidized. And then recently this year, I've been doing black tea. So I've also done, super fine pick of yellow tea, which I have up on the website right now.
Yeah, I had the pleasure of enjoying some of that earlier this year.
Yeah. And again, it's just playing around with it. And it's also acknowledging the fact that this took me a really long time. And it's just me, my mom, and my dad. And we'll sit there as a family around a table and we'll process this the same way that they do in India, right? Or the same way they do in small villages in Sri Lanka. And then I'll play around with different ideas as to whether I steam it, or whether I pan fire it, or whether I'm oxidizing with a rolling method, or whether it's oxidization with like a pounding crushing method.
Well, what did you do for this one, this green one?
That one, that was put through like a mangler, basically, like a roller.
Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds intense. Okay.
You know how they used to dry out sort of like old, you used to do your washing and you put your clothes through a mangler and it would actually squeeze the water out of it. Okay. So I essentially did the same thing with that. But yeah, we've done all sorts of stuff. We've completely covered tea in basically a plastic liner and run over it with an electric car before, and that worked really well.
I love it's an electric car. That's very ethical of you. That's good. And I don't want I wouldn't want the gas fumes either.
Exactly.
That's great. Okay.
But just to be able to try things out, that compares to an industrial press, right? And then also, in making the black tea, I experimented with sort of rough chopping. This particular set I did with a small amount of water, and basically we just reintroduced the water into each batch, so you actually kept the same amount of sucrose that was from the first batch in the last batch. It was consistent throughout the entire thing. So when you drink that black tea, it's actually quite sweet, and that's because all of the sucrose that came out of the oxidation process stayed in the tea. It stayed on the surface of the tea. And
Okay.
that I actually got from the coffee side of things. So you can kind of borrow different
Yeah.
processing methods and different ideas about how you could process a product from different industries.
I find that so fascinating. Recently, I've been really getting into um, the firing process for teas and
Mm.
the connections that that has to roasting in coffee is so
Yeah.
interesting to me. It's such an important yet underexplored part of the tea making process. It'd be really interesting to fire some of these. Hey, like to see what would happen if we were
Hmm.
to finish fire your green here or your crimson or your equivalent to black tea with your fireweed there.
I've done a little bit of it. I think it just takes knowing what you're doing from that perspective. I personally haven't ever seen tea fired properly. It's always been dried on conveyors in Sri Lanka or in India. I was in a small area in Assam and they were steaming all their teas.
Right.
So I don't personally have experience with firing. And when I did it, I basically scorched the hell out of my tea, unfortunately.
Right.
So
Right. Yeah.
um, yeah, it's just learning, right?
Yeah. Totally. I think you should try it sometime. Try and get it down to 5% moisture before you fire it, and just fire it for a little bit. Like a small guy like this, maybe 3 minutes at like 90 or 100 degrees centigrade.
Do you have a
And
moisture tester that you can do loose leaf?
you know what was happening at the it's like moisture loss. So it's like weighing
Yeah,
what your harvest is when you get it, and
right.
then it's knowing what you started with and keeping that batch all really like under
Yeah.
control, right? That lets you know. So like when we were in Mandokoro, they would actually weigh it, put it on the
Hmm.
raised beds, blow air on it, and wither the leaves, and then they take the whole batch and they put it back onto a scale and measure it, and then you'd have this idea of how much moisture loss you had via that particular process. And then they would just keep on weighing the batch as it went through, and then they would be able
But
to
Yeah.
wouldn't
make
you have to
decisions.
know the moisture properties in the first place? And something like fireweed might be a little bit different than something like tea that's been weighed for thousands of years.
Well, we do know that we're never going to get rid of 100% of the mass. So,
Yeah.
you know, and there is going to be there's going to be a lot of similarities between like a leaf-like botanical like this and Camellia sinensis. I would
Yeah.
assume that's why we're able to, you know, achieve some of these results. I think. So I think
Weighing it makes a lot of sense though.
right, because then you can just measure the mass loss through the drying process,
Yeah,
and
totally.
and then you could figure out what your total sort of moisture loss is via that drying process, like your saturation of that possibility anyways, right? Like how dry is dry, right? What that would be an interesting, you know, because if you knew like your entire batch what you started with and what you ended with, you
Yeah.
get a sense of that, right? So yeah, that'd be
Need
really
a need a really big scale, but I could probably do
yeah, you could
that.
break it up into batches, right? Like whatever the batches are that you process under the
Yeah.
car kind of thing, right? So,
Stop doing that a while
oh,
ago, but
good,
yeah.
good. So what am I doing here? Like, am I gonna be like? Should I start with the green version? Should I brew up some
Yeah.
the black tea version? What's the plan? Should I use boiling water? Um,
Um, you can use boiling for both, or off boil. I usually use like 96 degree for most of my stuff.
okay.
Um, I unfortunately do not have boiling water with me at the moment because it's been sitting for a while. So
Uh,
let's do the green for now,
okay.
and then I would say you could probably hit it with just anything off boil, and probably do about 3 minutes.
Okay. I love strong flavors, so I'm just gonna stuff my little Yixing teapot here with your leaves there.
I'm putting it in a fellow.
Okay, look at that. I managed to fit all of those leaves in here, man.
they're
This is
they're big.
this is all only for me though. I don't think this is COVID friendly for me to be pressing that in with my fingers. Okay. Sorry to all UT lovers out there who I just ruined your day by touching the leaves with my fingers. Okay. So, but I
You're
think
using your five senses.
thank you. Thank you. Is that's somewhat yeah. Oh boy. Okay. So I'm gonna do 2 minutes.
2 minutes? Cool. Oh, I don't have a cup. I should probably have
Is
that.
that what you told me? 2 minutes? Am I just mishearing you? I've been doing that all day.
I was gonna do three, but let's do two. Why don't you do two and I'll do three and we can compare?
No, I kind of feel like we did this already, and I need to
Yeah,
do
we
three.
did. We did. I don't remember what the results were.
I remember them being that you knew exactly what you were talking about, and that I was just unnecessarily experimenting with shorter brew times than I should have. There we go. That's what we're gonna
Right.
do.
I'm gonna disappear for 2 seconds. I'm just gonna go grab a cup.
Certainly. Okay.
All right. Well, I can pop up online. I'm not there yet.
Yeah.
I picked up the tea from the main studio. We're still walking back, but it's kind of chilly out.
Yeah.
Still dry, but it's gonna be so nice to have that fireweed.
I believe it, man. Yeah. No, it's. I'm looking forward to it. It smells really good. Like.
What's the kind of invigoration that you've been getting off of it, Jared?
There's just a really nice. There's just a nice sweetness to it. Like it really smells. You know, like you've had fireweed honey, right? I didn't.
Yes.
I didn't realize how honey-like fireweed was until I had this process of John's. So.
Or how fireweed like honey is? Oh.
There is like a soft sort of sweet vegetal flavor or like aromatic to it that is reminiscent of like a soft green tea. I can understand why why John is making those comparisons and those parallels, you know? It's really interesting. Yeah, these look great, John, in the pot there. It actually looks like Camellia sinensis when it's brewing. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's get a decanter out. I'm excited for this. I have so many, like, I don't know if it's visible there, but I just have so many teapots going. It's kind of hilarious. I got this guy going. I got this guy going. I have this extraction here. I was drinking some aracha out of a whiskey glass.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's you know, people were asking me if I'd have a hard time staying up for 24 hours for this show, and I think, like, stimulant-wise, I'm going to be okay.
Yeah. Well, there's no stimulants in this. It's caffeine-free, but I frankly kind of wish there was coffee or caffeine in it.
Yeah? Yeah, just with the end of a long day, you were saying?
I'm going to be roasting after this, so I got to go fire up the roaster and go make coffee for a couple of hours.
Oh, exciting. Okay, cool. All right. So
I'm experimenting with, so on the coffee side of things, I'm taking Mandarin and aromatizing coffee and balancing the moisture content. So.
Oh, interesting. Like Mandarin.
I don't just.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Okay. That's interesting.
I don't just play around with tea. It's everything.
You're gonna do an herbal coffee. That's
yeah.
You're quite the alchemist.
Yeah, isn't he? You know, you started after me, and I'm not done yet. I must have done something wrong. Okay.
I did 3 minutes.
No, I believe you. I think that when I started at 2 and then I increased it to 3, I must have mathed wrong. Yeah, so this is going to be more than 3 minutes.
I think it'll be alright.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, this was a fairly forgiving Tisane.
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, you can get multiple infusions out of it, and I played around with it pretty considerably. The green does not it doesn't act in the same way as like a typical green tea. Mm-hmm. I found that I can hit it with boiling water, and I can hit it with 70-degree water, and you know, there's a bit of a difference, but not really. I don't really find much in terms of the bitter aspect coming.
Right. No, that's interesting. Okay. Oh, look at that. T Victoria has joined. That means
I like your couch.
That means that Ryan has returned to Studio B. Or should we call it Studio JB? I think we should call it Studio JB.
I really should have gotten a screen for this. I've got a lot of floaties in my tea.
Uh-oh. So look at that, audience. Very, very interestingly clear liquid.
Yeah, there you go.
And there you are, you guys. That's looking really nice.
How much water did you use?
I used 3 grams, and I used 150 mils.
Yeah, I think I'm a little over that, but...
And it smells lovely. I'm getting like kind of a toastiness to it. You didn't, but how did you freeze the enzyme on this? Did you just wither it just dry it as is like a white tea, or did you
I think I steamed this in batches.
Okay, you steamed it, so that's cool.
Yeah. I'm regularly building new tea appliances. Right now I'm building a smoker.
You can do are you gonna do smoked fireweed? You should. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, probably not the fireweed, but I want to experiment with a couple of other herbs that I've got. I really want to do like a West Coast lapsang souchong.
Yeah, right. I was thinking Lapsang's
Yeah.
too fireweed, but
Yeah.
you don't want to do fireweed. You're gonna do something else.
I don't, maybe. I was thinking about using the stems and kind of doing, what is it? Is it hojicha?
Yeah. Hold your
Yeah. So just, again, using all the waste, would be waste from the products that I've got. Because right now what we're doing is we're taking the fireweed stems, drying the hell out of them, and then like they just dry in my dad's garage for basically 6 months after we're done with it. So they're still out there right now.
Mm-hmm.
And we take them and we grind them down and we use them as incense.
That's so cool. I love
Yeah.
it, man. You're so creative. It's amazing. So Ryan, what I did for this one is I did 3 grams, 150 mils. I find it really pleasant this way. But he's the creator. John was doing 3 grams, and what are you suggesting for milliliters, man?
I would say probably around that. I didn't bring my scale over here, unfortunately, so I eyeballed it. And looking at how big the mason jar is, I think I went a little bit over. So I would do. Do you have a scale with you?
I do. Jared took. I might be the fumbling fool, but Jared made sure I had the kettle and the scale
Perfect.
and a teapot.
Perfect.
He was like, we were going into the show. He's like, Jared, it's gonna be okay. I'm just gonna figure it out. And I'm gonna be like one of the, like an audience member who's watching. I'm like, that's a really good idea, Ryan.
Ryan, do you have a little? Is it like a kyusu?
It is a good idea, but I think it'd be.
What's that?
Your teapot.
It is. To answer for him, yes.
Me too.
Yeah.
I'm gonna use this for my black.
Yeah, nice. Okay. Shall we all Kyusu away? Is that the?
Are we going to QC the black together?
Yeah. Why don't we do that? Let's do that.
That's great.
Yeah. Then we're kind of.
I love giving people tea samples because it's just in like a little Ziploc bag, and it definitely looks like I feel like I'm giving people drugs every time I do this.
Oh yeah, it's definitely it's such a drug deal. I deal in powders and scales. Like there's a lot of raised eyebrows. My whole career.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Especially
back
when
in
you're
1
based out
second.
of Victoria, BC, right?
I know, right? Yeah. It's a thing. But this is okay. So
Jared side. This is 3 grams we're going for?
that is pre-weighed for you, sir. He's done a 3 gram dose.
Oh my gosh. See, this is why you got to go down to the studio.
No, that's all John, man. That's all John.
Oh,
He knows what's going on.
What I do?
Wow, that's really good. You pre-weighed these for us, 3 gram doses.
Yeah.
Because you're a pro, is what I'm saying, yo. Okay.
More because last time I just put tea in a bag and forgot to do that, so thought it'd be more professional this time.
That's great.
So I got 96 degrees, and we're going to do this for 2 minutes. Is that correct?
Yeah, let's do 2 minutes because this is a sort of more CTC style tea. It's a little bit finer. It's going to extract a little bit faster.
Didn't we?
I do suggest washing out your kyusu beforehand. Bring the temperature up a bit.
Yes. Like a rinse and then a preheat.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to do 96 degrees. So
I'm just happy because I haven't used this thing in forever.
I got this shipment right before, like on Friday, of all this beautiful teaware. It got me so excited. Look at this thing, man. It's like a carved. Keep doing this. Like that's carved. Like carved.
Out of it's wood?
No. That's like that's a ceramic kyusu.
Right.
And that's like a sakura or a cherry blossom that's been carved into the lid and the body of this little guy, and it holds all of like 200 mils. I love it. It's the most beautiful
Nice.
thing. I'm so happy with my kyusu. I was like I twisted my wife's arm to come down yesterday. I was like, we gotta open up the box. We gotta look at all the pottery. It's like Christmas.
Do the Japanese have something kind of like the gongfu clay?
Yeah, this is from
specific clay.
Yeah, this is from a particular pottery region that's famous for its clay. So this is and this particular one they say is even more special. It's supposed to like energize the water with like particular ions because this clay is so amazing or something like that. Was kind of the story that came with this particular teapot. But it's Tokoname is the region. It's in Aichi. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah, and it's very, very, very making me very, very happy. And that's what I'm brewing your fireweed black tea in, man.
I appreciate that. That's awesome.
It's gonna be awesome.
Did you time yours? Because I forgot.
I'm a minute away. I decided to go for 3 minutes because I remember this, man. I remember during Jaga Vision we tried 2 minutes and we were all happy with 3 minutes across the board for all the teas. So
yeah,
I just did 2 minutes.
I know. I wasn't gonna say anything, but anyways, that's your sign, John. If you want to do 2 minutes, do it now because
I'm gonna do 3 because I remember really liking 3 last time.
Sorry, Ryan.
The thing is that every time that I try to give people times for this stuff, they're using different temperature water because they treat it the way that they would with normal tea.
Yeah.
And I kind of just, for this stuff, I'm lucky enough to be able to generally do the same portion size, same temperature size, and it seems to work out pretty well.
Yeah.
But I just haven't really worried too much about it because people, when they think about herbals, they typically just treat them all the same.
Yeah.
And so I'm just like, do whatever you like. Experiment.
I often say that with tea. I just like, here's all my like particular settings. Here's the way that I think you should make it, like in terms of, not I think you should, but here's like a suggestion, like weigh your water, weigh your leaves, control your temperature, control your extraction time. Those 4 basic variables, get those under control. And it's going to be like night and day in terms of consistency and flavor extraction. But at the end of the day, like, just put your tea into some water and let it sit there for a bit until you're happy with the flavor. It's kind of the crux of it all, right? So
well, like I've played around with these enough to know that it's very difficult to get significant bitterness out of them. So
look at that, John.
I think it should be fine.
Isn't that gorgeous, that color?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mine's in a black little tea vessel, so you can't really see it.
I'm gonna do this for the audience into one of my Glencairns. Oh yeah. You ready?
Hell yeah. Scotch glass? Nice.
Yeah. Woo. Okay. Happy times.
Thank you so much. This is scrumptious.
Isn't this crazy too? Like, think about this. Can you tell us a little bit about what you've done to manipulate these particular leaves to create this particular?
Yeah, totally. So I tried 2 batches here, and essentially I use water to blend the crap out of the leaves and chop them up. And the first batch, I would remove the water every single time I did them. And I just would take that sort of mass of chopped leaves and I would dry it on racks, right? And influence the drying time using dryers and a heating implement. So that worked pretty well. But then what I did is I was looking at coffee and how they can sometimes use, like, for instance, a mucilage to affect the actual flavor and the chemical composition of the coffee, the sucrose that clings to the outside, how that works, like honey coffee, for instance, or gilingbasa. And so by looking at that, I was like, well, I've got this liquid sugar basically that has come off of these leaves. They're all washed to begin with, so they're clean. They're all grown organically. There's no pesticides that have been used on any of this. So what I decided to do was start playing with the sugar that was involved in that. And so the water that I use, I would introduce like a tiny little bit if I needed it, but it's essentially all the same water that was used in the first batch goes into the next batch and then the next batch. So with this, I was able to control the amount of sugar that's in there. So I don't know about you, but I find it quite sweet.
Yeah, really sweet.
Fireweed is naturally fairly sweet to begin with. But I found that by removing that, I was kind of taking some of the soul and the body of that tea out of there. So I don't know. I really like it. I've found that it actually cuts through milk if, God forbid, you decide to put milk in it. But it was basically... like my parents only drink black tea, right? They're old British people, and I wanted to create a tea that my dad would actually drink, and he likes this stuff.
Nice. That's really cool. That's really cool. That's fascinating. I feel this with every guest that we have on. We hit this 45-minute mark so quick. We have used up all the time we have for this talk today, but I really want everybody to check out Requiem Naturals. Like, this is such a fantastic process. I know that it's not all about enzymatic oxidation. This is one of the little alchemy experiments of the wide myriad experiments that you're doing. But I want them to check out like your different. You have those different blends.
I do
that you-
Zodiac teas
Yeah.
and the Elemental teas. Yeah.
Maybe you have some final words you want to actually leave the viewers with, like where they can find you, where's your website, any
Sure.
thoughts you have on these teas, and just sort of a goodbye to everybody who's watching around
Yeah,
the world.
totally.
Actually.
Yeah, thanks for watching, guys. I'm super curious to see what the people in Finland, because apparently there's some people in Finland, what they thought, but because this stuff grows there. But yeah, you can find my tea on requiemnaturals.com. I don't currently have shipping outside of BC, but maybe send me an email, and don't be discouraged by the fact that there's no shipping outside. I will maybe look at something. But yeah, I basically have my herbal body products, my tea, my coffee on there. The coffee is just going to go into a new season in the next little while. The teas are broken down into zodiac signs, so they're specifically designed for each one of the zodiac signs. And then the elemental blends are sort of like a quick and dirty version of that. So each one of the zodiacs breaks down into one of the 4 elements. And then, yeah, that's
Amazing.
it.
Cool. All right. Yeah, that's so requiemnaturals.com was it? Sorry, it was is where
Yeah.
they can find you, right? So requiemnaturals.com. Ryan, did you have any words that you wanted to leave John with?
Yeah. Big thanks to John. Like, without John, this festival would be a camera with no guests, and me and Jared would go on for a few cups of tea, but it would probably not make it the full 24 hours. So big thank you for that. But the main thing that I think was so great is that you're celebrating your own alchemy, your own creation and tinkering of figuring out flavor, and then just like being honest about it and inviting people to find the time, find the temperature, and really just use their own equipment to figure out what they like to extract out of the tea and have that tea experience. I think that's so beautiful that you let us all feel like we're our own experts.
Thanks, buddy.
Awesome. Cool. All right. Yeah, lovely to have you on, John, as usual. I feel like I could talk to you for hours and hours and hours. It would not be enough time. So
Totally.
I look forward to talking to you more in the future and continuing the friendship, man. And I wish you the best of
Absolutely.
luck with Requiem Naturals. And I hope to see you at the, I'm sure I'll see you before then, but also at the 2021 Victoria Tea Festival Revival. So
Absolutely.
awesome. All right. You take care, man.
For sure. You too. All right. Thanks, guys.
Cheers. Take care.
See you later.
Bye.
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 Okay.
All right. I can introduce our next guest if you'd like.
You want to take over? Awesome.
All right. You can put me in the captain's seat there, and I'll entertain people for a hot second. So, yeah, thanks to Requiem Naturals. You can always find their website, requiemnaturals.com. But our next guest from Tea Room 306 is Mimi Choi. She's joining us via Skype, I believe, mainland China. So we're hoping that that's going to go nice and smooth for us. But again, if you just stick around for 12 minutes, we'll be able to deliver that to you, and that'll be about 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Thanks.